Excerpts from Objects in the Mirror, Thoughts on a Perfect Life, from an Imperfect Person, written by Stephen Kellogg, American singer-songwriter. The Marriage. You're probably wondering when I get to the part where I teach you all my tricks for an easy union, free of animosity and filled with daily bliss. That section's coming now. People marry for all kinds of reasons. We marry because we don't want to be alone. We marry for lust. We marry for acceptance and validation, because it looks good on paper. We marry for financial stability. Someone to help us with all these bills. We marry because it's what we think we are supposed to do. We want to experience a wedding or start building a family. We marry to check a box, thinking this part of our life will be all figured out. We meet someone and try to mold them into that which we wish them to be. We marry for all these reasons and 1,000 more. I certainly did, but I now believe that there is only one real reason a couple should ever take vows. It's because you met your best friend and it's impossible to imagine life without each other. I know this might seem like an oversimplification, but I'm not trying to be cute here. Sometimes we think we've met the one, and we turn out to be wrong. It happens. We misjudge. People change. People grow apart. But if we don't start with a deep, profound friendship, we're pretty well screwed from the outset. I've toured with guys over the years who refused to share with their girlfriends or wives anything fun that happened because they were afraid it would make them jealous. I never understood that. Shouldn't a best friend want you to be happy? Isn't that the whole idea of a best friend? To find somebody we can be ourselves around without having to do any acting? Being able to sleep with one of these people might just be the most amazing fringe benefit of all time, but if it interferes with the friendship, they're probably not marriage material. The wedding. A wedding is not a marriage. It's important not to mistake the two, and yet a lot of us do. In most cases, not all, it's a celebration designed to reflect the love of the couple. But how often does that happen? We've all got a whack job uncle or a drunken friend who is bound to ruin the pictures or make a speech that no one asked them to. Some of the most fun weddings I've ever been to never should have happened. A number of my divorced friends confessed that they knew even on their wedding day that it wasn't right. Well then, why the hell didn't you say something? And while we're on the subject, can I have back the all-clad stainless steel pots that I bought you? I proposed to Kristen before I knew that marriage was something I was enough of an adult to do. At 24, it was hard to conceive of myself as the man of the house. The first time we slept at my in-laws after getting married, I half expected to awake to my father-in-law standing over me with a bat. I had not, after all, asked his permission to marry his daughter. Instead, I told him of my intentions to propose and expressed that I would like his blessing. Your vote would be a real cherry on top, sir, but I'm doing this either way. Small distinction, but I wasn't taking any chances. That's the crazy thing about marriage. It just makes it so official. It says to the world, I've made my choice, my one selection. You weren't born in my family, but I like you so much, I want you to be part of my family. Our wedding was a blur. I insisted to my future mother-in-law that she was being a tyrant for telling me, a musician, that we should hire a band that she had found. I pretended to be considering a jazz trio and acted quite put out for a guy who wasn't paying for a nickel of the party. We went with her recommendation, but not without my being a sourpuss. I've since attended no less than 50 weddings, and I must confess, I never heard a better wedding band. Despite my approach to the whole thing, at the end of it, I got to call myself a husband, and that's not nothing. The Marriage, Part 2. Around the time Kristen and I got hitched, my mother invited a number of married friends to her beach house and asked them all to give us a piece of advice. We strolled up and down the shore with each couple, listening to their guidance, and we carried with us a symbolic walking stick, though I wish it had been a bottle of booze, because that might have eased some of the awkwardness of having my parents' friends tell us to be generous with our bodies. They probably weren't much older than I am now, and their point was a good one, but still, you understand, it was a lot to process. Listening came up an awful lot, as it should have. Trust, that was a big one. Giving your heart freely and without reservation. Fidelity was mentioned, though a person who doesn't comprehend that cheating in a relationship is waiving all rights to further comment should probably not be getting married in the first place. Of all the lessons offered on the beach that day, there was one piece of advice that always stayed with me. Learn each other's needs and attend to them graciously. This may be the most important thing I'm going to say on this particular topic, so for the sake of emphasis, allow me to repeat myself by stating that the way we support each other will most likely dictate how satisfied we are in our marriages. It just starts with understanding, which is needed. What fundamental things did I need to be happy? Intellectual stimulation, physical touch, and plenty of spontaneity. And what would be essential to Kristen's sense of well-being? Exercise, travel, and a positive atmosphere to live in. These things kept our lights on. Without them, the spark could go out. We aren't always going to know exactly what we need, but usually if we give it some thought, we can figure it out. Once we do, and this is a big step, it's up to us to make it known. It doesn't matter if we write it down or say it, so long as we figure out a way to share it that isn't just, if you loved me, you'd know. Too often, we're afraid to ask for what we want. It makes us too vulnerable. And that fear of asking for what one needs puts the responsibility on our partner to magically fathom it, which is, of course, entirely unfair. Life is much too short for that kind of guesswork. And if you're lucky enough to learn what illuminates the love of your life, well then, you know what has to be done.